Well, gentlemen, thanks for joining me today, Yulun and Joe. It's a pleasure, and I'm excited to hear about the World Telehealth Initiative. So, gents, I know you're both super busy. Let's share the message with the rest of the medtech industry.
Well, so Joe, thank you so much for having us and the opportunity to explain what World Telehealth Initiative is about. And so maybe I'll just go a little bit in terms of how this whole thing came to be. Does that make sense?
That'd be great. I think it's got something to do with you two gents working together previously, but give us the details.
That's exactly right. Joe DeVivo and I have been working together on and off for decades now, but in the latest episode, we were working together at InTouch Health, and InTouch Health became kind of the largest telemedicine provider in the world, selling telemedicine technology to hospitals and health systems, and was developing a pretty significant network which reached in the thousands of hospitals and had tens of thousands of doctors and specialists on it. And InTouch was a for-profit company and venture-backed, and we had to sell to places like Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, Mass General, et cetera, et cetera. But what Joe and I realized during this journey is this global network is really, the people who would benefit from it most are the people who would never become a customer of InTouch because they have no money. They don't have healthcare. They don't have any money to buy telemedicine. So Joe and I started ideating around the concept of, well, how do we use this new technology in a way which can really serve, call it half of the world? And so after quite a bit of ideation, the concept was, we need to form a separate nonprofit in order to do this. Joe was the CEO, I was the chairman of InTouch at the time, and then we took the concept to the board of InTouch and asked if it would be okay if we could form a separate not-for-profit and then leverage the technology for free in order to support this nonprofit humanitarian effort. And so the board actually said yes, which is fantastic. So that's why in 2017, World Telehealth Initiative was formed as a 501c3 not-for-profit with the mission to bring healthcare and clinical expertise to the underserved of the world. So the addition to the technology is obviously you need the docs or the clinicians, nurses, or what have you, and they're not inexpensive especially in the U.S. healthcare system, the developed world. So the idea is, could WTI get people to volunteer to help the less fortunate in the world? And actually, at this point in time, I should introduce a third person who's not on this call right now, Sharon Allen, and who is the CEO and co-founder of WTI. And so she started working with on this idea since the beginning. And actually, we had no idea how easy or difficult it was going to be to get people to volunteer. Doctors, nurses are busy, right? In fact, burnout is one of the number one issues in the developed world. Well, lo and behold, it turns out people love volunteering for this. It's been quite honestly unbelievable, and it's a bit of a statement of humanity where people actually, even though they're super busy in their day-to-day job, especially like diaspora from places like Africa and others, of which 25% of the clinical workforce in the U.S. is, they actually love the opportunity to volunteer their time. And so that's kind of how WTI was formed. Today, we're up to, we're delivering care into 17 countries, 50 different kind of underserved communities. We have 1,700 volunteers covering 50 different specialties. And so this is happening on a day-to-day basis. I could go on for hours, Joe, but I'm going to pause there.
Well, thanks for setting it up with us. It's one of the best kept secrets Glenn Snyder turned me on to it from Deloitte. I think sits as an advisor on the board. And once he started sharing the information, and then of course I knew you and Joe DeVivo were involved, I said, how come the rest of the industry doesn't know about this? And Joe, you're a walking billboard for success and health at a distance, coming from health up close from the old US Surge days. So, share what is it that continues to drive you on this?
Well, I mean, Yulun is the true success here, and I've had the blessing of following his vision, from computer motion and surgical robotics to InTouch, and then now what he's doing with Savado. For anyone who's watching, is absolutely insane. And also, Yulun has a heart of gold. And if anyone's had the pleasure of being in his orbit, he just wants to solve problems, help patients, and be a good citizen. And in World Telehealth Initiative, I think what just for people to understand is in the stroke use case we did, a lot of people think telemedicine is what we're doing right now. We're on a call where we have just a basic webcam and we can do a Zoom call. But to be in a clinic, it's noisy, it's active, it's bustling, it's confusing, and you can't just get a patient to come up and sit at a desk. And so the essence of the core technology initially was a robotic device that can see 30 times away, that you can stitch a close-up image to a faraway image, that you can turn the screen and you can make eye contact with the patient, and you can be present in that busy environment where you have noise control that allows you, if you have three people standing next to each other, all talking at the same time, if I'm looking at the person in the middle, I can actually hear that person. That's the essence of this technology, to actually be an application to bring almost a human type of experience into a busy, complex environment. And so as InTouch, we put thousands of these around the world, and we allowed a doctor at their desk to actually be present in a clinic and give life-saving and life-altering therapy. And InTouch had this really interesting business model where we had a ratable business. So we wouldn't just sell the hardware, we'd actually do a 3-year lease, but we would only book the revenue on a monthly basis. And so when the lease was up, we'd take the equipment back. And I remember Yulun and I were getting kind of tired of paying for warehouse space, because we'd have 100 of these things now coming off a lease, and we'd go put them back out, but we'd also want to sell the latest version. And so with this powerful network that allows people to connect as well as these devices, kind of the thought of WTI was born. Because if you just ship now with thousands and thousands and thousands of doctors around the world on the InTouch Health, now Teladoc Health platform, they one click into any site, and the network has the provisions to go into the hospital and then be present, and it's unbelievably powerful. So the concept of just taking one of these devices that came off lease and sending them to a third world country, putting them in a noisy clinic, now allows you to tap into thousands of doctors with one ID and password. Then bam, they go into Malawi, or they go into this country, and they go into the clinic, and they can now communicate to the nurse and the patient and the family. They can now see the environment. They can zoom in if there's a wound, and zoom in if they want to see the dilation of the eye. And it gives them great confidence to render a clinical decision. And so that is how, and that whole concept is what Yulun saw, and how he said, you know what, if we can get Teladoc to be willing to donate this product off lease, if we can get Teladoc to allow to have access to the network for free, we can connect thousands of doctors to these areas of need. It's almost like, Doctors Without Borders, where, you go into a community and you add all this value. It's except instead of 2 weeks a year, it's 52 weeks a year. And it's, if a doctor can sit down in between 3 and 4 o'clock, they have a window of opening. Within that 1 hour, they can go beam into one of these clinics, be present, and allow their clinical expertise to create significant amount of value. And so WTI is amazingly powerful. And I'm just blessed that as an admirer and a friend of Yulun, that as Butterfly, we in a small way can get more and more involved, and we'll get more involved in the future. But I think anyone listening to this podcast should understand that a portal has been created to 52 communities in need, that you who's listening to this might be able to have an impact as well. So,
And Joe, you mentioned butterfly. You know, obviously an ultrasound technology that is point of care and really simplifies and extends reach out dramatically. Is this technology one that's got potential for an open API for a dozen butterfly platforms to be out in underserved communities and still be able to provide a diagnostic and/or potentially therapeutic delivery system?
well, that's exactly the business model, Joe. So first of all, we have a low-cost personal device that can scan the entire body using a semiconductor MEMS that can recreate every signal and banded frequency necessary to see throughout the whole body. But it's architected in a cloud-based environment, and it's architected in an app-based environment. So telemedicine is actually a very easy component of it. And what's cool is since you plug it in the phone, the remote viewer can see the image, of course. They have a camera that can see your hands, so they can tell you how to contort the probe, and then they can see your face. So you can talk to them dynamically. So sometimes, ultrasound's complicated because image acquisition is hard because you have to find the anatomy. And then interpretation is hard because you have to know what you're looking at. But with Butterfly, you can put all those together and they can go into, we have 1,000 of them in Ukraine. Almost every medic has a Butterfly, and they're all throughout Israel and Gaza, in the conflict zones to be able to, provide health care, and then throughout Africa. And so it's a beautiful combination with what WTI is doing. But WTI is an amazing vehicle because it allows for specialists to be able to very easily provide incredibly valuable care in these places of the highest need.
Yulun, tell me the impact it has on the clinician. You know, if I've got 3 to 4 open and I'm already kind of burned out from my day and my paperwork, yet I get to do what I want to do to the people who really need it.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Joe. As I mentioned earlier, we have 1,700 volunteers today, but quite honestly, it would not be difficult to get to 17,000 or 1.7 million. What's been so exciting in this journey is that the volunteerism, we have people wanting to come volunteer. Why is that? Well, it turns out that, clinician wellness is a big topic these days. And what's been shown and written about and published is that it turns out a pretty small percent, like 10 to 15% of your time spent on meaningful contribution reduces burnout. And when we first started hearing about this, we were a little bit, what? Could that really be true? But it's repeatable. It's repeatable in such that that we can pretty definitively say now that volunteering through WTI reduces burnout. So much so that what WTI has figured out as part of its business model, because a nonprofit it's difficult to figure out business models for nonprofits, but one of them that is going well is that the health systems who are concerned about their clinician wellness, there's no place for them to have their clinicians volunteer easily, but we have 4 going on 6 health systems becoming members of WTI, and they're helping to support WTI. Providence is, Cottage Health is, Orlando Health is, and then a few more, where they're basically giving some support for WTI to organize a program for their health system to allow them to volunteer. And let me take that one step further and tie it back to what Joe was just talking about. So as I mentioned, Orlando Health is one of our supporters. And they're the ones who kind of pulled together the concept of, hey, let's use Butterfly with WTI to actually bring imaging, ultrasonic imaging to these different areas. And I think we've completed 3 pilots. One's in Ethiopia, one's in Bhutan, one's in Kenya. And they've done over 8,000 ultrasonic scans, doing things from internal bleeding to even retinal detachment scanning. And it's been hugely successful. And actually, Butterfly via Joe and WTI and Orlando Health have been talking about how do we spread this out across the entire network, because it's actually, it's actually bringing tremendous benefit to those in the underserved regions.
And Joe, if I can add, that robotic device that sits in the clinic in country is like a portal. And it's a portal. And first of all, as I mentioned, it allows the physician a lot of control to feel present. And it's amazing how people respond to the device, because you almost melts away and you think the doctor's just right next to you. Um, that portal has tremendous connectivity, not only to the local Wi-Fi, but actually to the local hardware. And so if there's another company like Butterfly that has a device that would benefit people in these third world countries, and they want to get involved with WTI, this device literally has all the plugins like behind your TV. It has all the ports, HDMI, and it has, the network cable and Cat5 and, USB-C and this and that. So you can literally, instead of having to think about doing a hard integration, you can just simply take most devices that would port data with standard connections into this device. And then it has additional screens like we would have here that now the data from that device comes up for whatnot. So as I know you're a sensation, in our healthcare industry, Joe, with the platform that you've built and all the companies that you know and the friends that you have. All those companies can participate and come into WTI and use this, just like hospitals are using this as a way to create an easy way for their doctors to fill their charitable soul. WTI is also a way, like Butterfly, for other companies to come into this ecosystem so they can create value into these sites of care.
And I love to hear this, Joe and Yulun, because there's so much untapped opportunity in the big strategics as well as the mid caps and small emerging tech companies. And if people can't make a choice of an option they don't know exists. So I think at this point, really pushing this out, sharing it, challenging, even running it through organizations like Scott Whitaker's AdvaMed and others, right? Just creating an awareness that we've got a portal to do the things we all love to do every day. I think this is a magnificent opportunity. Yulun and Joe, in closing, Yulun first, anything you want to share that our listeners and watchers should be aware of?
Yeah, and I think what I'd love to share is, how is WTI different? Because the concept of global health is not new. I mean, Doctors Without Borders has been doing it for hundreds of years, really wonderful work. Other organizations have been doing it. The mechanism by which global health, as in helping the less privileged, has really been the medical mission. And the mission is you get on a plane and you get all your shots and you fly somewhere. And as Joe mentioned earlier, you help for a week or two out of the year, and then you come back and then you have to recover and get back to your day-to-day life, which is, and it's really commendable work. But what WTI has done is enabled those who want to do it to do it easily. Every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m., they help with Bhutan or Ethiopia or what have you. And that reduction of the barrier, the friction to volunteering increases the number of people who volunteer dramatically. So I don't know the exact number of people who go on medical missions, but it's significantly less than 1%. My gut feeling is that well over 50% of people in the healthcare field would want to volunteer this way. So that's point one about WTI and what we're doing different. This telemedicine network that we've been talking about. Now, if you can get a whole large volunteer organization to assemble and deliver care to hundreds and perhaps thousands of places, that's a lot of scale. And so how do you deal with that? And this is where WTI for several years now has been developing its own two-sided platform, like an Uber or Airbnb. And this platform matches volunteer providers with under-resourced places in a more of an automated way, like an Uber or an Airbnb. And we believe that as this thing matures and continues down our road, we figured out a way to potentially make a significant impact on global health disparity that's never been before possible at, at, at almost no cost because the volunteers are free and it's food for their soul, and the technology at this point in time is completely free, and so it's actually very exciting to see this kind of continue to move forward.
Love it. Joe, bring us home?
So Joe, my favorite story from WTI is, one of the first clinics that we put a device in was in Malawi. And it was, and it's amazing that this still exists, but this antiquated complication, Joe, where some women after childbirth have such trauma that a fistula occurs between the vagina, and the colon. So think about that. So these women are aseptic. They have odor. They are shunned from their society. So you have this now new expectant mother who is like banished to a room, who doesn't have, they're dealing with a polluted sexual organ, and they get shunned from their society. Now, this is an occurrence that very quickly gets managed in Western health systems, but there's not the capability to manage it in these countries. So you have thousands of women who have to deal with this. So in our first clinic, doctors from Baylor who specialized in how to do this type of fistula repair helped a doctor in Malawi. And they started to do these procedures, and they started to teach this local doctor and be there through the procedures to show them how to close this fistula. And so now women who were dealing with this ailment are now getting cured, flat out cured. The fistula closed, they're clean, and now they live the life, enjoy their child, and go on and to live their lives. And this doctor who was receiving this education and receiving this oversight had done so many procedures that she's now become a world expert.
Wow.
And so now not only is she expunging this lack of wisdom, expunging this issue from her community, but she's now helping other communities. So this isn't just about feeding someone for a day. This is about making the world a better place. And that's what Yulun, Sharon, and WTI have really made happen. And I'm just I love him. I'm proud of this mission. And this is out there for everyone. If you're listening to this is here for you. You can jump on and you can extend the great things that you're doing right away. And so I'd really urge you to get involved with the World Telehealth Initiative.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing this best known secret in medtech. I'll be sure to make sure I spread it across our network and put the challenge out there to everybody, clinicians, investors, strategics, and anybody else who wants to help along the way, and even write a check in the old days. We could do that as well. I appreciate both you gentlemen spending the time today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Joe.
Always good seeing you, Joe. I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.